Welcome back to another episode of Careers in Baseball, where I am virtually traveling the state to talk to the behind the scenes professionals with careers linked to baseball. Now, before I introduce today's professionals, let's pause for a second and appreciate this beautiful piece of fabric atop my not so beautiful head. Do you know what this is? Yeah, it's obviously a hat, but it's more than that. This masterpiece is the product of the marriage between good marketing and good promotion. Now, not much can be done for what lies underneath this hat, but in the context of this series on careers in baseball, what this hat represents is, like all marketable industries, baseball relies on good promotion and marketing. I would go so far as to say that the industry of baseball relies on marketing and promotion more than most industries, including, in my opinion, the other primary sports in our country. There are, of course, many variables, but hear me out on this. Football has one game per week and one home game about every other week on average. Compare that to a 162 game baseball season, often with 3 to 5 games a week, all back to back. Add to that, with the structure baseball is in, especially minor league organizations, the demand compared to football to earn revenue at each and every baseball game demands, more so compared to football, continuous and creative marketing and promotional efforts. Basketball, now compared to football, basketball does have a schedule that is closer to a baseball season, being that it has more games and often back-to-back games like baseball. However, in terms of creating that entertaining environment that makes fans want to attend and spend money, baseball has one big variable that it has to deal with that basketball doesn't, and that's weather. Unless there is a snowstorm that shuts down a city, or like our current situation, a worldwide pandemic, basketball games will never get canceled. On top of that, because basketball arenas are smaller and indoors, they often have access to many environmental technologies that baseball doesn't. Lights, better audio and video quality, and so on. All this being said, from an industry perspective, promotional and marketing efforts in baseball are essential in making baseball an actual industry, an industry that creates jobs, adds essential value to our national economy. Now, obviously, having a quality product on the field that includes people like Corey Kluber, David Freese, Miles Michaelis, Trey Turner, Fernando Tatis, and so many others, all former Fort Wayne Tin Caps, has a lot to do with it. But your average fan isn't going to be able to name those people I just named. And the average fan goes to the ballpark because the atmosphere and the people. And professional organizations can't just rely on uber crazy fans like Hardy the Hat Guy. It relies on the average fan. In steps marketing and promotion teams. And these are the careers we're talking about today in this episode of Careers in Baseball. And I'll tell you what, I got the best hobby in the world. I get to talk to people like you guys. And, first of all, I appreciate you guys joining us. Who I'm talking to, this is 1/8, I believe, of the marketing and promotion team for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. Just a quick side note, Fort Wayne is, in my opinion, I've been all across the state. I love baseball in Indiana. You guys are setting in what I feel is the heart of baseball in Indiana. And that's why, because of what you do, because those passionate fans in Fort Wayne is why Fort Wayne Tin Caps, they're at beautiful Parkview Field with that beautiful skyline behind John right there, is why you guys are one of the top what's the word I'm looking for? The best represented, or the just top organizations in minor league baseball right there in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Who I'm talking to, I've got John Nolan. You know his voice, the broadcasting and media relations manager for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. We have Morgan Olson, the assistant director of marketing and promotions. We have Brenda Feasby. I made a mistake already. That's why, I jokingly offline told these guys that of all the people doing this interview, I'm the least qualified to do it. So that's not going to be my first error. So Brenda Feasby, the community and fan engagement manager. And we have Sarah Kendall, the Marketing, Community Relations, and Promotions Intern. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to this as we talk about marketing and promotion in a minor league baseball organization specifically, but just generally, what it takes to really put people in the seats and create that atmosphere that is so awesome there at Parkview Field. So I think where we start out, I want to let each of you give a little bit of, I talked about that beautiful Parkview Field. You're all baseball fans at some level. Let's go around the horn here and let's talk about those moments where you go to work and you're like, man, I'm getting paid to do this. I am in the right spot. I love my job. Maybe John, we'll start with you on my screen anyway. You're on the bottom, then we'll just go around the horn. Thanks, John, for joining us today. Tell me about those moments where you just love being with the Tin Caps.
Yeah, thank you so much for the chance to catch up with you here, and appreciate the very kind words. Definitely justified for the organization. I don't know about for myself personally, but yeah, you talk about having those moments where you wonder, can't believe this is a job that I can be paid for. I mean, that's just about every single game for me. With my role as the team's broadcaster, not only do I have a chance to be in the ballpark without having to pay for a ticket, but I get the fortune to watch the game, because as Morgan and Brenda and Sarah and some of our other staff members would tell you, I mean, their jobs can be really fun in their own ways, but they actually might not have any idea what's going on in the game because they're in charge of orchestrating what's happening when the game's not going on. But in my case, obviously, I do get to follow the action, get a chance to get to know our players and coaches, and as you touched upon off the top, there's definitely a cool factor that so many of these guys do wind up becoming notable names and major leaguers. But I mean, the whole experience is a lot of fun. And then even just beyond the chance to call the games, you talk about other aspects of the job. I think one thing that does separate the Tin Caps from other organizations is the office culture that we have. And it's, not the kind of stuffy office that maybe a lot of other work environments have. But I think, we've got a little Tykes basketball hoop normally set up in our office. You can have random inflatable objects, a fake palm tree, other stuff that as they're getting ready for promotions during the game gets stashed in the office. And so lucky to have great teammates and everyone who shares a lot of the same values, and that includes a strong work ethic, but also a great sense of humor and a desire to serve our community.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see that in the way you guys portray yourself online. You can tell that it's not fake, that you love what you're doing. Let's keep going around the horn here. Brenda Feasby, I did a little better this time. The Community and Fan Engagement Manager. Let's tell me about those times where you're, tell me about you being a baseball fan and you're loving the fact that you're with the Tin Caps.
Yeah, so just to echo real quick what John said, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. It's awesome to get out there and just talk to other people in the community about what we get to do, because it brings us joy for sure. For me, it's just getting to be involved in the memory making business. We hear that all the time. I was an intern last season. And it's something we're told it's always someone's first game. So getting to actually be a part of it now, to, when you're running on top of the dugouts and you're throwing softy balls into the crowd, seeing a kid's face light up when they catch one, it's just a new level of just wow and humbling. And it's just fun to be a part of stuff like that. Going out in the community, get to do like school appearances with our mascot. So when you're there, and then like when you're out and like doing grocery shopping or something, oh, like, weren't you at our school? Or I've gotten to do the chicken dance here a few times, and I've seen people and they're like, weren't you in the chicken suit last week? I'm like, yes, I was. So just little things like that. It's just cool to like be a part of the community in that way. People come here to not only watch baseball and see the show that we put on the field, but it's also an escape for them, just whatever they're going through with life, just to kind of take away any troubles they're going through and just bring smiles to everyone. And it's just fun to actually be in that realm and get to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
I'll tell you what, the view right there behind John, that's better than my office view. And I don't wear chicken outfits to work. So you guys it's kind of depressing here. I'm wanting to change careers. Morgan, let's go to you. Your career as Assistant Director of Marketing and Promotion. Let's talk about how much, you love baseball.
Yeah.
And I loved what Brenda said with just seeing those faces and things like that. Is probably the same.
Yeah, it's definitely along those realms for both what John said and what Brenda said. What's cool for me is I was born and raised in Fort Wayne, so I brought my career path back here somehow. They trusted me. They wanted me here. So seeing kind of the transformation from the Fort Wayne Wizards to the Tin Caps has been amazing. And being able to, I think one of my favorite things is either a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday game. I'll stand up like on our suite level, so like pretty much outside where John is during the game, and just look out, and we have 8,000 people here, and I'm like, you all, like, we're making memories for you. Majority of you, this is your one game this season. So it's really cool to see that. Building relationships with our season ticket holders. I think John and I are the two on staff that work the closest with our players. That's something that I value a lot, and just getting to know them, know that they're people outside of the ballpark. Anytime we're doing something fun on the field, I got to experience a couple games as an on-field MC last year, and I'm now our number 2. So was hoping for that this season, but now I get to practice more this off season, or potential season. So being able to do that was super cool. It's just those moments where like my dad comes to a game and he's like, I paid 4 years of college for you to play musical chairs. And I'm like, and I'm loving every minute of it. You brag to all your friends that I work here. And so it's those things. I'd much rather we all know in minor league baseball and in sports, you're not in it for the paycheck for the most part. You're in it for those memories. So when a little kid comes up to you and he's like, I caught this foul ball, or it's my birthday, you're like, that's my paycheck for the week. How excited you are because we did something is awesome.
You guys are painting a picture for sure that I'm loving. Matter of fact, I think I joked with, it might have been John a while back. You guys had some kind of promotion for Bat Boys. And I'm like, you need to have a promotion for middle-aged has-beens that want to come and be Bat Boy for a day, call it,
I think we did better something enough. Yeah.
Call it the Bat Old Dude Day. So
sounds like if Brenda ever needs a break, we could get you to throw the chicken suit on at least.
Hey, I'm game. I'm game. Now, Sarah, as we move to you, your title is Marketing, Community Relations, and Promotions Intern. The intern perspective. How long have you been there? And when was that moment where you said, yep, I'm in the right place?
Yeah, I started February 3rd, so I was here for about a month and a half before the world happened. That's the best way to put it. But I had previous intern experience in minor league baseball last summer, so I already knew that this is where I wanted to be. But just in the first week of getting to know everyone, the community and family that is in our office is something I've never seen before. And I just knew that I was someplace special where our ownership, management, everyone around me truly cared about my experience and that I was learning a lot. And they truly want me to succeed and help me get to the next point where I can be in the same shoes as Morgan and Brenda, whether it be here or moving to another organization someday. It's just really nice to know that.
Well, I'll tell you, as from the outside looking in, I look at on the professional level, the Padres, which nice lid, by the way, the Padres and the A's, a lot of those California teams, the environment they create is just so fun. And at the minor league level, the Tin Caps are there too. I look at them with that same fun environment that makes a baseball atmosphere more than just baseball. It's the whole community. And that's, a marketing and promotion effort, but it's also just a community effort as well. Before we're going to back things up here a little bit and talk about maybe each of your background as far as education and, other jobs. I'm sure we've all had the jobs where we've had to mop the floor proverbially, but to get you where you are today. But then before we do that, though, I want to kind of identify your specific, job roles, what each of you are relied on to do specifically for the Tin Caps. What doesn't get done if you guys don't do it. Let's identify those roles, and let's just go back around the way we started. So Sarah, I'll just bring it right back to you. the title, offline, we were kind of joking about how long that title was: Marketing, Community Relations, and Promotions Intern. So what does that involve?
Well, I don't fully know what I would have been doing on
Yeah,
game
that's
days.
fair.
I do
Yep.
know that I haven't had one yet. I know that I would have been picking people out for our promotions and helping them get to the spots to be able to participate in them, working our guest services desk. On non-game days or leading up to game days, I get to hang out with Johnny. If he has a community appearance that day, taking him to where he needs to be. National anthem, communicating with the people that are going to be performing each game, where they need to be, checking in that they're still available for the day that they have been assigned. I go through our donation requests and fulfill those and get those mailed out when our office is open. Kids Club, creating events and help marketing it to the community and trying to get our enrollment up, and also involvement at different events we have during the year with our Kids Club, Players Clinic, Johnny's birthday party, just any kind of events that we have going on with it each year.
Well, hearing what you said, and I'm guessing this is going to be true for the other three, is the one thing that all four of us have in common is that we're going to wear a lot of hats. I'm guessing that you do a lot of functions. You're not focused in on one specific thing. So let's keep going around the horn. To Brenda, the community and fan engagement manager. Tell me about your day to day. During the season, off season, game day, non-game day.
Yeah, so my situation's a little unique. Like I said earlier, I was an intern last season. I've been familiar with the Tin Caps since 2017 is when I started working part-time in the store. Realized that summer, I'm like, okay, I want to be here full-time. Don't know what I need to do to make that happen, but I would like to be here. Came back in 18, worked in the store again, met Morgan, got to shadow a game and applied for the internship, got it. So with my role now, I took some stuff off Morgan's plate. So the donations that Sarah oversees, I help out with those. Tours of the ballpark for groups when they want to come out. Johnny, Tin Cap, the mascot's overseeing his calendar, scheduling him out in the community, making sure that he's seeing all his friends. And then my main real big focus is the fan engagement. So like the fan experience when they're here, making sure that when they're coming into the ballpark, it's an experience that they want to have again and again, that it's not just that one game, that we hopefully get to see their faces. So turning that on our seasonal staff that we employ here, which is close to 300 to 400, that's anything from concession stand workers to, cleaning crew. We can't do what we do here without them. So our frontline workers, because they're going to interact with more fans than we probably will a game, how do we give them the tools that they need to interact with our fans and make it that quote unquote great experience that we're looking for and that they're looking for? And then also, how do we show our seasonal staff how much we value and appreciate them for all they do, just because they're here a lot of hours, they're with us throughout the season, and just making it a valuable experience for them too. So when it does come to an end, they can look back and be like, okay, like baseball's coming back around. I want to work for the Tin Caps again. I want to be a part of that team, that family, that feel that we have here. So that's my main focus with it. I started October 1st in this full-time role, and COVID came, but we're still making the most out of it. I'm excited to see what's still to come, possibly in 2020, and if not, 2021. There's always room for improvement and growth for sure. And I'm just taking this time to learn as much as I can and get a feel for this role.
Well, and I'm learning from you guys. One of the things you mentioned there that I hadn't thought of is, well, first of all, just a side note of, you mentioned how many seasonal employees did you say?
About 300 to 400 seasonal, and that's anything from, like I said, ushers, ticket takers, food runners, vendors, servers, bartenders, cleaning crew. Like, we employ a lot of people here because, like I said, if it was just, like you said, the 32 staff that you pulled up when you went to our website, there's no way we could run around, do all that on top of our responsibilities already. So we do want it to make it feel like that big family sense, and all the hours, all the work that they do, it's big, and they interact with more people than we really will.
And part of your role that I hadn't thought of, when the fan engagement, it's also involves you passing on or being the glue, so to speak, so that all the faces, all the people that are getting a paycheck at any given time, there at Parkview Stadium, they have the tools and resources to represent what you want them to represent. And that was a pretty neat point that I wouldn't have thought of. Morgan, let's go to you, the Assistant Director of Marketing and Promotions. Let's talk about your day, game day, non-game day, season and off season.
Yeah, I think every single time I try to list out all my responsibilities, I have to look at Brenda and I'm like, what am I forgetting? And she has like 3 things. So I'm currently a supervisor. I oversee Brenda. We hired her in October, and then I oversee our marketing intern every year. My biggest thing I think that I do is I write our game day script. So everything between half innings, pregame, postgame. So with that, it's a lot of corporate activation. Anything that the corporate guys have sold or our VPs have sold, activating, making sure that we're on track to make sure that if someone has bought 35 games of a promotion, we're fulfilling it throughout the season. Any of our player appearances, or our jersey auctions and giveaways, I don't create them. I will give that credit to Tony Displains. But once they get here, they're pretty much in my hands of what we're going to do with them. On-field MC now. I help facilitate all of the promotions on the field. I'm our main contact with radio and TV ad buys. I help John with some social media stuff, so like Tin Caps minutes and stuff like that. Our supervisor's trying to pawn off all of his interviews off on me and John now. He's like, I'm moving on with that. So now I get those calls. All of our national acts that we bring in, so Birdzerk, Superstars, all that, I schedule those. I make sure and oversee all of our weekly promotions for the most part. So like post-game autographs on Sundays, Thirsty Thursdays, theme nights, all those things. Every Friday we have a theme night, so I make sure that we're on track with the creation of that, of headshots, thanks for the video board, our program covers, costumes for promotions, all those things. There's a lot of other stuff I feel like that I list this off, and then every time I'm like, there's at least 7 things I'm forgetting. So, but yeah, it's a new transition role. I think I've been here, this would be my 5th season, and I've had 3 different job titles. So it's been interesting to I've always been in the same role, but it's a step up every year for the most part. So I got this promotion in October. So our VP, Michael Limmer, is still handing stuff off to me, and I don't know what else would be on my plate if COVID wouldn't have been a thing.
Well, that's affecting us all for sure. The roles we each do individually. But one thing I'm hearing is that, like I said at the beginning, you're wearing a lot of hats. I mean, there is a lot going on behind the scenes of a professional baseball game. And John, I turn it to you, broadcasting and media relations manager, the voice of the Tin Caps, I want to know, your day to day, but also, how much are you working with, like Morgan said, she working with you at different capacities, how much are you working with not only the marketing people, but maybe management? How does that all interplay with what you're doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think it goes across the board on our staff that we all wind up having to work with each other in different ways. Even when it comes to the community element of the team. Let's say during the season, we'll have young kids sometimes get a chance to come out and interview a player. So, I'll correspond with Morgan or Brenda or someone like in Sarah's role and, set up a time and a spot where a youngster will come out and interview a player. And then in my main role, I get to interview our players and also have the chance to do play-by-play of our games. We're unique for a minor league team that all of our home games are on local television. And we have a separate broadcast for TV and radio. So for all 70 of our home games, I'm on Comcast Network 81. And then for the 70 road games that we have, I travel with the team to broadcast those on our local ESPN radio affiliate. So then compared to most others on our staff, that's one thing that makes my role different, is that for half the spring and summer during the season, I'm not at the office when the team doesn't have a home game. I'm on the road. But then the media relations aspect of the position if someone wants to interview, whether it's a player or coach or member of our staff, they'll go through me. I work with another position that we have as part of our marketing department, our digital content manager. So along with Morgan too, we all contribute to running the team's social media accounts, and then also our website too. So whether it's, in season, a story recapping a game, or in the off season program that we have, like let's say national anthem auditions, posting news and information like that on the team's website. And yeah, just up for trying to contribute wherever we can. And let's say we're in the season and it's a rainy day, then everyone on staff, whether you work in the food and beverage department or the marketing department, or obviously the grounds crew, it's all hands on deck when it comes time to pull in tarp. Luckily, once the game's going, if it's raining and the tarp needs to come out, I stay up in the press box and let Morgan and Brenda and the rest of the crew take care of it then. But yeah, we're lucky compared to the average minor league team that we have a larger staff than average. So we all do get to specialize a little bit more in our roles, but of course it does differ if you compare that to the major leagues, where the full-time staff is in the hundreds instead of just the tens or the dozens. And and someone in my position as a major league broadcaster, they more or less can arrive to the ballpark, sit down, and just focus on getting ready to call the game. Whereas in my spot, that might not crack the top 5 priorities for a given day.
Well, and the good part is, we were kind of joking with offline is, you're doing, like I said earlier, I'm the least qualified to be doing an interview in this, but the good part is I'm pretty good with the computer, so I can edit out all the stuff and the mistakes I make. But you're doing it live.
A real trick. I do the same thing.
A lot of the stuff you're doing is live, and that requires actual talent. But one thing I want to talk about, before we get into education and things like that, we may end with that and then kind of look at it going forward. But it's not just about marketing for direct results of getting people in seats. Now, obviously, marketing promotion is about that, but it's also about that community element. What can a big employer like the Tin Caps, which is what they are, they are an employer, but an organization that gets that kind of community to show up all the time. I want to talk about the involvement each of you have as far as that. I don't even want to call it a side role, because it's part of the overall marketing and promotion with the community for in terms of giving, in terms of being a resource in times like now, in the pandemic, where the communities need a resource that has the resources to turn to. And I know the Tin Caps have been very active in that realm. So whoever wants to respond, I'll just throw it out there generally, as far as how does the marketing and promotions team work with, say, management or corporate sponsorship and things like that, to provide those, needed services for the community, like some of the meals programs and things like that you're doing?
I can steal this one. So I think with our biggest thing is, in any time, we always try to make it known that this is what we do. So whether it's wearing our brand or telling people like, hey, I work for the Tin Caps, if there's anything ever that you guys would like to do. So no matter what, making sure that you're just upholding that brand is possibly one of the biggest things, because I know that like we've had emails come through from people that are friends or family or random people that are just like, hey, I know you work there, and then we're there to help. One of our biggest things that we've been doing, especially recently, is we host at every game. We have a community organization of the game. So it's a program that we have where we have a nonprofit every single game. They get a table on the concourse, a first pitch for someone in their organization, PA reads, and a video. Completely free of charge to them. It's sponsored by Fifth Third, so Fifth Third Bank provides all of that for them. And so we've reached out to all of our potential COGs and everyone that we had booked for the season, because we had, I think, almost every single game booked already. before this all happened. So we've been reaching out to them of, hey, our hands are tied of what we can do right now, but is there anything that we can do to help you guys get your word out? Or if you're having services or anything like that. So we've been setting up interviews with them and John, because like you, I am not one to facilitate interviews. I'm decent at getting interviewed. So John's been the one kind of tagging that with me, just seeing what we can do for them and getting more information out there. Because news channels are only going to do so much for them when all this is going on, where if we could be another outlet. The meal kits was a great idea. We stole that from Round Rock, another minor league baseball team. If you know anything about minor league baseball, it is 100% just stealing ideas from each other. Hey, this worked in your community, we're going to do it here. So that's been awesome, getting our kitchen up and running. That's one reason why us three are sitting here. We're volunteering in our kitchen every day this week. I normally would have dressed up for this. I have potatoes on my shirt. I'm sorry. But so doing stuff like that, we've had 16 last week. People purchased 16 meals. 5-Star, our alcohol distributor, purchased about 10 of those to get donated to Parkview, where we donated them, or we dropped them off. We're trying to make it more known that we're doing that as well. And then our t-shirt that we created, Tony, again, shout out to him for another one, created our In This Together t-shirt to go to a Parkview foundation. Mainly those funds are going to be used for the staff that must be quarantined and can't go home because they're working their COVID unit, to get them in a hotel, to get them food, anything like that. So we just want to make sure that even though our gates aren't open because we want to abide by all the rules, we're not 100% social distancing because we're roommates, just so you know. But so it's stuff like that of, we just want to make sure that we can still get our brand out there, knowing that we're helping the community, but we genuinely just care about this community. They've supported us since day one. So we want to do the same thing for them, especially when we know they're the ones that are going to be in our seats when we finally can open.
Well, and just to stress what you said and what you hinted at, which is baseball is not just about the field. You know, it's a community, it's an industry, and it's important. You know, I can't say it any better than that. It's important for so many reasons, for economy, for community, for, you know, so many reasons. That's why it's, you know, the marketing and promotion people are at the center of that. You know, you guys have your finger on the pulse of everything going on with the Tin Caps, because it all comes back to, we've got this brand and we've got this, you know, not just the brand, but we also have this desire to, you know, give back to the community that gives so much to us, you know, and you guys are doing it very well. You know, the one thing that John and, well, everybody's hinted at is that, you know, you all hands on deck. You know, one thing I'm picking up from all of these career videos, like I said earlier, you know, you're not just going to do one zoomed in thing. It's all hands on deck, and for all aspects of what you're trying to do. Get people in seats, sell hats to hat guys, and reach out to the community. Let's go back now and let's talk about, you know, the education, maybe the specific education that each of you have, how it prepared you. You know, was it specific towards what you're doing now, or was it a general thing? And then maybe talk about in marketing and promotions in general, or as, you know, you could relate it to specific tasks that you have, like, you know, John specifically for broadcasting or specifically for media relations. You know, what is your education? And tell us about, you know, and I'm not just talking about the college, going back to, you know, high school and beyond, the education, the traditional education in the school environment, the education from mentors, and then kind of hint at going forward, what resources do you turn to stay, you know, ahead of the game, to stay up to date with all the emerging trends in your particular part of the industry? And John, I guess we'll start with you in the broadcasting and media relations.
Yeah, and for my story, and I think a lot of broadcasters share a similar story, since I was at least 13 years old, if not before then. You know, I was a kid who grew up loving sports, playing sports, I'm not that smart, but I at least was smart enough to recognize that I wasn't going to become a major league player myself. So that's when my mind started shifting towards another potential career where I could still be close to the action. And when I was in high school, I didn't have too many opportunities to do anything broadcasting wise, but I initially was involved with student newspaper and yearbook and some other writing, and then eventually even like online broadcasts. But I did know that I wanted to pursue this path. So when it came time for college, I went to Syracuse University in upstate New York to major in broadcast journalism, because I had looked into where a lot of the broadcasters that we see on ESPN are working for major league teams, where they went, and Syracuse has probably had as many broadcasters going to sports as any other college. So I went there, again, was involved with the student media organizations as much as possible. I mean, a key thing to share with you here, though, is that while I was a student there was a guy who was a couple years older than me. His name was Mike Cousins, not my cousin, but Mike Cousins. I wish I could bet from nepotism. And for Mike, his full-time job out of school was becoming the Tin Caps broadcaster. And my lesson that I would just share with anyone who might be in school right now would be that, because I kind of had a mentor-mentee relationship with Mike when I was in college, I kept that relationship going. And so, I check in with him to ask, hey, how's, your first job going? Hey, what's it like living in a new part of the country? Because he was originally from the Northeast like I am. And so then fast forward a couple years later, and Mike was in need of an intern with the Tin Caps. And so I applied for that position. And I always say, I'm sure there definitely were others who applied for the position who would have been, whether more talented broadcasting wise or more experienced. But the one advantage that I did have was that I had the pre-existing connection with Mike, something that I had cultivated over this couple of years, because it wasn't simply just because I went to the same school as him. If I hadn't talked to him in 2 years, and then the first time I was reaching out again was to say, hey, I want a position here, I don't think that would have given me quite the same edge. So that's something that can be beneficial. And otherwise, to answer your question, I would say, though, for anyone who would be interested in going into broadcasting, where you go to school, in my opinion, is not the most important. And honestly, even what you major in isn't the most important. It's just, in broadcasting, you need to have experience. So whether that's going to a community college and being involved with student radio or TV or online digital stuff that continues to grow, that honestly holds more value than if you went to, let's say you went to an Ivy League school, but you never did anything media related before. I'm sure you're highly intelligent, but you don't necessarily have the experience that's going to prove most beneficial. And I think the others can speak to that too when it comes to working in sports. That experience and outside of the classroom is, arguably more important than your books and curriculum kind of education. And broadcasting is one where you don't really, having a master's degree by and large isn't really a qualification anywhere. So since I got my undergraduate degree, I haven't gone continued education that way. In broadcasting and media, I mean, I just constantly, though, am reading to see what's going on in the industry, keeping in touch with peers that way to make sure, I'm kind of in the loop and trying to, it's hard, it's maybe in media is as difficult to try to predict the future as any element of society these days, but try to keep the pulse of what's going on that way.
Are there any mentors, maybe even still this day, that you look at anywhere, any sport, any kind of media, really doesn't even have to be sport, that you look at? There maybe you tailored yourself, you tried to mimic early on, or someone that you look to and say, wow, he's doing it right. I need to try to figure out how to work something that he's doing into my repertoire.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are really countless examples, and I joke that when I grew up, I was a fan of the Mets, the Jets, and the Nets. And during my lifetime, none of those teams have won a championship, and they've brought a lot more, fan pain and suffering than joy. But the one thing that all those teams had going for them is that they're broadcasters, and even hockey too, with the Devils and Doc Emmerich, who's actually from around the Fort Wayne area. The other teams the Nets at Iron Eagle, or still have Iron Eagle, the Mets with Gary Cohen, and the Jets on radio with Bob Wischusen. Those guys all call games nationally. So I think I was able to absorb their excellence, and in some fashion certainly do sort of emulate them in what I do now. And then mentioned Mike Cousins, who was here with the Tin Caps before me, and then he made the jump from single A straight to the big leagues in a sense, working for ESPN. And when I was in college, I'd interned with the AAA team in Syracuse. At the time, their two broadcasters were Jason Benetti and Kevin Brown, and now Jason Benetti is the television voice of the White Sox, and he's on ESPN all the time. And even Kevin Brown actually is a radio broadcaster for the Baltimore Orioles, and he's on ESPN. So definitely have been super lucky to personally know. Those are just a few of the broadcasters who I've been able to develop connections with. So I have no excuse for not being able to say I don't know sort of what it takes for people to do the job at a high level.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm picking up from what you're saying is, number one, the connections, the networking, it's important. But then number two, get started, just do the work, be in the industry. It's the degree is one thing, the education is one thing, but be in the industry and don't just wait for a diploma to get started. Get started now. Kind of a recurring theme I'm hearing in all these, and it sounds like something that you were on board with there early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add, obviously, now with the way that technology has grown, you can create the Hardy the Hat Guy network. You don't need to officially be working for a TV station or a newspaper or anything like that to be able to put your stuff online. So unlimited resources out there for anyone looking to create content.
Well, I am living proof that it doesn't take talent to be behind a camera, for sure. So speaking of talent, let's, Brenda, Morgan, Sarah, let's bring it to all three of you. Let's talk about, where did you go to school? Did it, kind of with what John was talking about as well, what other things other than school, helped you get to where you are and prepared you for where you are? And then what resources do you turn to now to, progress your career forward? And I'll let either one of you start.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I am from Fort Wayne. I went to Northrop High School, and I was an athlete, played volleyball and basketball. So I had a really good relationship with our athletic director. And so I really wanted to be that for someone else. So my goal was to be an AD in high school. So I went to Ball State because education is their top major there, one of their top majors. I learned very quickly, teaching is not for me. Having to explain in word things, I just couldn't do it. Patience is something I'm still working on. So I was undecided for about a semester, and then I'm doing some digging on campus of different majors, and then I find out that sport administration is a major. I don't know if it was just me not getting more involved in things, or if I was young and naive, I don't know, but I guess it never really hit me that every sports team has a front office staff. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. They need people to run things. So I did a lot of digging. I grew up big sports fan, sports family, baseball's at the top of that. And so I read the program wrong for Ball State Sport Ad major. And I thought I had to do 10 hours of job shadowing before I applied for the major. And so one of the teams that I shadowed was the Tin Caps. And so you're going to hear the same thing from probably all four of us of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so having a mentor is pretty much what got me my job today. So when I was shadowing, I shadowed a girl named Tara Cahill, beloved individual with the team. She was there. She was the intern at the time. And so I shadowed her for 2 games, and we're walking down the tunnel by the dugout. And it was one of those come to Jesus moments where you're like, this is where I want to be, who I want to work with, what team I want to work for, what position, everything. So I was here for a couple days, and I asked Tara, I'm like, this is weird. You're an intern, but we go to school together. You're only a couple years older than me. Will you be my mentor? Can I go to you with any questions that I have? Anything like that. And if you know Tara, she cried. She absolutely loved it. She said yes. She still to this day is one of my best friends. But so then I went back to Ball State for my sophomore year, and I just dove in. I've always been about the classroom. Like, I love learning, but sport is something where you have to get involved super quick about things. So I joined the Sport Administration Association. So I was a VP of Internal Affairs. I staffed all of our student volunteers for all of the sporting events that we have. Ball State is a MAC school, but it is D1. So no matter what, you could have 5 different sporting events on one game or one day. So you're hopping between field hockey, soccer, swimming, all those things. I did that, and then I became the president of the association, brought in guest speakers, worked on resumes, held workshops, different things like that. I also was an intern in the athletic department with marketing, so doing all on-field promotions, on-court promotions, different things like that. I landed a training camp internship for the summer before my senior year in Atlanta. So worked with the Falcons for two months, thanks to a family friend. So again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And then I went back for one more semester at Ball State, and then it was time to apply for my big 400-hour level internship. And at the top of that list, my dream is to be a GM of a minor league team. So I'm only applying for minor league baseball teams, and one of them being the Tin Caps at the very top of my list. And luckily, Tara, who was my mentor, had stepped in to what my role is now. She was full-time. So she made me go through a very long and intensive interview process. We average about 4 interviews for our interns just because we were going to spend 90 hours a week with us. So she made me go through all that, and then she hired me, and she's like, I knew it was going to be you from the beginning. And I'm like, thanks for making me sit through 4 or 5 interviews. And then I actually started earlier than all the other interns. I started a month early in 2016, just because I didn't want to binge watch Netflix for a month. And I was like, you guys don't even have to pay me. I'm just going to volunteer. And my first day on the job, we're sitting in an elementary school office, and Tara's looking at me, and she goes, hey, I just want you to know I'm leaving in 2 weeks. And I'm like, what? She's like, I went to school for accounting. I'm going to go get my CPA. She's like, you we're going to talk to our VP. She's like, it's either going to be you only, or we're going to bring in another intern, or we're just going to hire you full time. She's like, we don't know what's happening. So then we brought in a second intern. We tackled all of the internship responsibilities and the full-time responsibilities. And then we both got offered at the end of the season. So he did not accept, but I did. So I've been full-time since September of 2016 now. So again, 100%, it's about your connections and stuff like that. So, and just putting in the grind work. I tell them all the time, whoever my intern is, I don't care about your GPA. Don't put it on your resume. I care about how much experience you can have and the broadness of it. I did sales, I did marketing, all those things. So it's being able to travel. The fact that I could put that I lived in Georgia for a couple of months on my resume set me aside, because you're willing to move for your career. So definitely that's my key advice, is just be willing to go outside of what your dream is, because it might end you in the right place in the end.
Be flexible to pay the dues. It's what it sounds like. And that's a very strong point for sure. Brenda, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I am originally from Northwest Ohio, a little cute town called Payne, Ohio. I moved here to Fort Wayne in November. Live with Morgan and another roommate, but I grew up playing 3 sports, basketball, volleyball, softball. Graduated high school, went to go on to the University of Northwestern Ohio, UNO, and Lima, Ohio, majoring in sport marketing and management, where I played softball for 4 years, center field, grass life. And UNOH is known for their high performance motorsports team. And although I do find myself a very skilled driver, I thought my talents could be better based in a sport marketing realm. So UNOH is great. The class sizes, everything, the teachers and staff, made a lot of really good connections with administrative people there to help me, broaden my knowledge and everything like that. I was a Red Cross ambassador for 3 years. So I helped plan and coordinate blood drives at our campus. So getting students involved with that, looking to get athletes more involved, because you're seen as the leaders at campus and all that fun stuff. I was the mascot Torque for 3 years as well. That was really fun, just get out in the community and be involved in that way. But finding the Tin Caps, I was a junior in college. And like I said, it was just that one summer, it just took me to realize, okay, this is something that it's bigger than you. And it's just what I want to be a part of, and just get to have that feel with the community. So I remember it vividly. It was a game in 2018. I went back to get something out of the closet. Someone asked for a different size sweatshirt. And Morgan was back there with the store intern at the time, Devin Murder.
I was probably eating or something.
They were eating, yeah. I was going to leave that part out. They were eating chicken tenders and fries. But I went back, and she stopped me as I went to go back out. And she's like, so what do you want to do with your life? And this was the first interaction I'd ever had with her. We had TVs in the store, so of course I would watch the in-between inning breaks and see what they do. She's like, what do you want to do? Like, where are you in life right now? I said, well, I'm UNOH right now. I'm set to graduate in June. And I said, I would like to work here full time. And she's like, oh, like in what area, what department? I said, marketing. I said, what you guys do, I think is great. And just getting that sense of like community engagement. She gave me her business card. She's like, I want you to email me. She's like, tell me a time, like a game that you want to shadow, and we can get it on the calendar. So went home that night, freaking out. Looked at the calendar. Harry Potter night was coming up. And I'm like, okay, this will be a fun theme night, something to get involved just to see not only how a game's run, but also on a theme night. Came here. And at the time I was working a parts assembly job back home. You talk about how we all had to like start off somewhere. I worked out at a gas station first, and then I was at a parts assembly plant. So I got to this game, and we had rain for a while. We ended up getting it in, but it was a late game. We had a scout overnight on the field that night. I didn't get home to good old Payne, Ohio, till about 2:30 in the morning. And I had to get up for work at 6:30, but it was a fun night. It was great just getting to be a part of the promotions. I hung out with Morgan and her intern for most of the night. And it just cleared it up right there that I was like, okay, like this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to be. So it's just getting to be involved, I guess, over the years. Playing sports was a big part of it. That's where you learn, like, leadership, communication, trying to be a good role model for your friends as much as you can. I like to be a good mentor to others, just because people were like that for me. Morgan's a big one. My mom, I have an older sister, just people along the way that I've just tried to model as best I can, going to with questions or just looking at how they live their life and trying to embody it the best as I can. But roundabout way, sorry of answering that for you.
She made herself known in the ballpark. She's a very like big, bubbly personality. She's always positive. So as soon as the season was over, she emailed me and she's like, hey, when are you guys like posting your guys' internships? She did it instantly. So, and as soon as her application came through, I'm not mean like Tara. We didn't make her go. We interviewed her once. So I was like, I'm getting 2 interns this year. And everyone in our front office said, we're hiring Brenda, right? Like before anyone even knew that she applied. And so that's one of those things too. If you shadow or you get your name out there or you just try your hardest, like she was Johnny for me for some games. She wanted to do anything and everything. So again, getting to know people is the biggest thing.
You're marketing yourself. And, one of the things I've always said, I don't care what the industry is, you want to find the funnest people at that company, find the marketing department. They're, because of the nature of what they do, dealing with the community and people like that, they're natural people, and they're just the funnest people to deal with in really any organization. And, we're talking to 3 people who are in the path. They've, and now let's go to Sarah. You're at the intern level, but you've got the educational background, hearing what they say, how are you looking forward, as your education wise has, seen what they do on a regular basis. How is your education, or what would you say to somebody that wants to get into it as well, with your background, where you've been, where you want to go? How is your background, education just being one of those elements, obviously, the networking and the rolling up the sleeves or some of the others. How has that prepared you, and what would you say to the person that wants to follow your path?
Yeah, so I graduated from Avon High School in Avon, Indiana. I am an outlier in the office where I am very bad at sports. I did not play them past like 6th grade because I knew I reached my peak of performance. So just put them on the shelf at that point.
Well, very competitive there in Avon
like Morgan,
too.
I went, yeah, exactly why I stopped. I was like, I'm not going to make any teams in middle school because they started doing cutting at that point. So I was like, that's it for me. But I also attended the Harvard of Muncie, Indiana, Ball State. And I also misunderstood the application process for the sport admin program. So to get hours, so I was ready to apply as soon as I could, I volunteered as a student manager for my baseball team at the high school, because I was like, that's the only team that's left. I like baseball, gonna do that. And it was the most fun I've had working in sport, because I haven't had a season here, but it's been fun what I have gotten to do. But we had a losing record, won sectionals, still don't know how that happened, but I knew I wanted to stay in baseball because the players are goofs and it's just the most fun. Went to Ball State, had a few road bumps in the road, but eventually got into the sport admin program. I worked for the athletic department from day one. My freshman year, I was a student manager for the women's basketball team, and my fall semester, I worked for the rec center. Very quickly left that job, and worked in the equipment room for athletics until the day I graduated. I worked with every team except football who had their own equipment staff, and just got to meet so many amazing coaches and student athletes. I don't care what people say about student athletes. They are some of the hardest working people I've ever met, constantly traveling and still having to keep up with their classes. Got involved with the Sport Administration Association. And something that's really amazing about the sport admin program at Ball State is they have several immersive learning classes where you are getting real world experience in sport. Yeah. I'm a recent grad, that's why I totally forgot about all that. I took a revenue generation class where we sold Fort Wayne Tin Caps tickets, cold calling people. There's an event management class where we put on a real golf outing to raise money for the Fund for Excellence for our program, that students can request funds to attend professional development conferences. I was lucky enough to get a grant from the program to go to the 2019 winter meetings out in San Diego. Had to take all my finals early because it was finals week, but was definitely worth it. I was an intern last summer for my 400 credit hours as a stadium operations intern in AAA baseball out in Des Moines, Iowa for the Cubs. I realized about 2 weeks in that was not the department for me. I was not as good at manual labor as I thought I would be, but I became a pro at changing ceiling tiles. That became my specialty because I was the perfect height for the ladders to do it. But my favorite parts was the fact that during game days, we were the promotion staff, or we were Cubby, or selling 50-50 raffle tickets. And I realized that was the stuff I really wanted to do. And I knew I had a well-rounded resume, but to be able to get a full-time job, I knew I needed a full season-long internship since I was just there from May to August. So I decided to apply anywhere and everywhere in the Midwest, tried to not go stray too far from home, and went through the very long interview process, and was lucky enough to get the position I really wanted as marketing, community relations, and promotions intern for the Tin Caps. Hit the ground running, and
well, and with Sarah, it was cool too. At Ball State, they, as one of their classes, they pair you up with someone. So they find out kind of what realm you want to be in, what industry, what job, and alumni get paired up with them to be a mentor-mentee relationship throughout the semester. And I was Sarah's mentor for a semester. And so when her resume came across my desk, I was like, I know her. She emailed me like every other week. She was very impatient with waiting for my replies, but I know her. And then there was a couple, she introduced herself to our VP of finance and stuff. So there was like at a Ball State event. So again, I had known her beforehand, what set her aside.
And I like to think I've gotten better and more understanding with sending emails.
Baseball season's crazy.
Baseball season is a hard time to try to network with people. That's been kind of a benefit for me, with everyone working from home and people wanting to talk to people that don't live in their house because they're most likely living with family at the time or any roommates they may have. So I've been doing a lot of networking with Major League Baseball, community relations, and foundation staff. That is a dream of mine, to work for a nonprofit within sport, because I think sport has the power to change the world, and I want to be helping do that. So that's kind of where I am. I think a piece of advice: just because you like sports doesn't mean you can work in it. There were some people that I had classes with where they're like, oh, I like sports, so I'm just going to get a job in it. And they applied to an extent in classes, but they didn't go get that experience. And to this day, they still don't have a full-time job. They're either were an intern or are an intern and are still trying to get to that next step. And they're getting impatient. They're like, I have the experience. Why am I not getting a job? I'm like, you didn't apply yourself to get to know people or get relevant experience to what you're specifically wanting to do. Like, why are you taking sales internships if you want to be doing ops or marketing? Like, there's overlap, but you need to be getting the more specific experience.
I'll tell you, and following up with what Sarah led there, as we wrap things up, let's go back around the horn and let's summarize, because a lot of components in the background to get you where you are, a lot of moving parts going on right now, for sure. I mean, even in this time where baseball's not happening. And just a quick side note on that, as appreciative and as lucky as I am to be able to talk to you guys today, the very reason I'm able to do that is because of the time in the schedule, because we don't have baseball right now. So it's kind of a mixed blessing.
We would be having a game right now.
Right.
Yes,
We would be having a game right now.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly my point, which is, I'm very thankful that I've got to spend this time with you guys, but it's kind of a mixed blessing, because, all of us would want baseball back. And, so let's, that one point, Sarah kind of wrapped up, her position there as far as, what would you tell, the person wanting to get into the industry. As we wrap it up, the question is, what would be that one thing, one takeaway that you would give the prospective person that's going into marketing and promotions in the sports industry, maybe baseball in general? We've hit on a lot of things. Stay flexible, stay versatile. Don't get tied down to one thing. Roll up the sleeves, do the work. A lot of great points. As far as marketing and promotion, what's the one takeaway? And we'll just go back around the horn, maybe, Morgan, and I'll put you on the spot first. And what's that one thing you would say?
Oh, I thought you were coming to me, and I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. I gotta think.
I'd say be open-minded and just do research. Like I said earlier, a lot of our stuff we steal from other teams. I'm in a group text with people from Pulaski, Myrtle Beach, Daytona, Charleston. Like, we're sharing ideas nonstop. I'm like, this worked in your city. Do you think it'll work here? That doesn't mean you have to have a full-time job to start doing that. We share tweets with each other in the marketing department nonstop of what teams are doing. So start brainstorming now. When I interview people, I always say, if you could have one theme night, what would it be? Have you ever thought about creating an on-field promotion? What would it be? So being able to be creative is a big thing for me, besides everything else that we've already talked about, like you said. So also that just gives you more mentors and colleagues and stuff. I talk to them probably more than I've talked to the Tin Cap staff lately. Just, hey, when we do get to hear the crack of the bat, what's your guys' game plan? So stuff like that, of just getting contacts out there sooner rather than later.
Brenda, and like I said, you've hit on a lot of things earlier as well. Just in putting you on the spot here, what's kind of one takeaway that you would give someone wanting to fill your shoes down the road?
Yeah, I would just tell them, be open to doing new things, helping out where you can. Kind of the mentality I've had since I was even a high school athlete was, get to practice early, be the last one to leave. Kind of the same thing here at work, like you're going to be asked to do different things and be open to it. When someone does say, hey, put this chicken suit on, don't be like, oh no, take and fully embrace it, fully know that it's going to mean something to someone and, it's going to be a fun thing to do, and just never stop grinding, see where you can help out. For us, a day never really ends, still just going okay, 5:00. No, we don't clock out at 5. We're still thinking, okay, what's to come tomorrow or even next month, next week? How can we still be, like Morgan said, staying creative and sharing ideas, branching out. So just be open to everything that comes your way.
I think with her, a lot of it too is not just with her, with what she said, remember that you're all just puzzle or pieces of a bigger puzzle. We don't have a season. We don't know when we're going to be able to start. At the moment, whether it's this year or next year or what have you, us four, our job is so game related to where one of the only big revenue generators that we have right now are these meal kits. So we not getting paid to be in the kitchen right now. We're doing this as volunteer work, volunteer hours. We're spending every day in the kitchen. It's not my dream job. I don't love weighing out 350 pounds of taco meat, but at the same time, I know that it's making our team money and we're helping the community and stuff to where it gives me purpose almost right now. So again, like she said, if you get asked to do something, don't complain about it, just do it. Our big slogan here, one of our big slogans is there's no job beneath anyone here. Our team president's been the mascot. Our VP's scooping up ice cream off the floor on the concourse. We all have to do something. So
I'm gonna back up just to stress what you just said. The team president has been the mascot. Man, if that doesn't sum it up, of just do the work, that is perfect. I absolutely love it. And John, as we move to you, in the broadcast, you're the last word. So I'm going to give you the last word as we looking forward. What's the one takeaway for someone getting into broadcast media relation?
Well, yeah, I would still echo a similar sentiment to what Brenda was talking about there in terms of you got to be able to or willing to outwork people, because to bring this back to where we started, our jobs are really fun and they don't feel like jobs. And so as a result, you have a lot of people, and Sarah touched upon this, you got a lot of people who want to work in sports, to work in broadcasting. And the reality is there's a limited number of jobs. So yeah, to sum up what other sentiments that have been shared, you got to be able to outwork people as one of the ways that you're going to wind up standing out from basically the competition.
Yeah, and that competition, that kind of summarizes this whole episode, which is in marketing, you got to market yourself. I mean, it is a competitive segment of the baseball industry, the marketing and promotions and broadcasting. I mean, specifically broadcasting too, if I could just highlight on that for a second. I mean, there's not a lot of broadcasting jobs. We don't have a major league baseball team in Indiana. We are a baseball state though. Don't let me fool you on that. But so there's not a lot of broadcasting jobs. So it is competitive. So some of the things you guys were talking about, the networking, the proving to the people that could be your boss in the future that you're willing to work up the sleeve, roll up your sleeves and get the job done, and you're flexible enough to do that. All those things are great points. And I'll tell you, just kind of as we wrap things up, John, you said you're from you went to college in the Northeast side, the New York, that whole New York, Boston area. Everybody says that's the birthplace of baseball. I differ for that, and I'm hoping someday I could talk one of you guys into having a Fort Wayne Kikiangas night there at the Parkview Stadium. Of course, the Fort Wayne Kikiangas, it's a lot of debate on this, but they were the team that played the game in 1800s. It was I think it was the American Association, and I could be wrong on some of these stats off the top of my head, that led to the first, it eventually led to the American League, Major League Baseball, first professional baseball game, just a few miles behind you there at that park, which there's a little plaque for, there in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I do consider Indiana a baseball state. You know, we have a lot of history, a lot of heritage. Just because we don't have a Major League Baseball team does not mean we're not a baseball state. And you guys are sitting in the heart of it right there in Fort Wayne. And it's in no small part because of what you guys are doing. And to sum this all up, you're not just marketing for a job. You know, you get your enrichment from those reactions from the fans and things like that. But your marketing efforts, your promotion efforts are helping fuel that industry. It's creating jobs. It's creating other careers. So, you know, tip of the cap to you guys from the hat guy. I don't know much, but I know how to tip a cap, and one goes to you guys. I really appreciate it for your time with me today. Like I said earlier, you know, it's a mixed blessing because we'd all rather be at Parkview Field right now watching the Tin Caps play, but it's coming. Don't lose hope. Some semblance of a season will come, and a lot of people depend on baseball as an industry. So thanks again for you guys doing what you're doing and taking the time to talk to a hat guy. Thank you, folks. Join us. We got more careers to talk about as we travel the state talking careers in baseball. Thank you.